Welcome to the podcast, Eye for Talent, the show where we've got an eye for talent. I'm your host, Dylan, aka DJ Cereal Sauce. I'm a YouTube content creator, Twitch streamer, producer, freelance writer, and I think that's the official list. All right, I've gone through and I've done some internal thinking, and I've realized that's the whole list. There's nothing more, there's nothing less. Those are the big things, but this isn't about me because today I'm joined by a person who I'm checking my notes here, and all I said was this motherfucker a good ass baker, like so good you don't even know. But that's the whole point of this podcast. Who is that person, you might ask? I don't even think you'd be able to ever guess it, except maybe you could because it like says it in the title. This is my good buddy Shy or Shy Larza, if I'm going by their government name.
If you want to know my real name, hi, I'm Skyla.
Yeah, I didn't know that was.
That's add an R to the end of it. It just drives me insane. It's like, how do you get R from Linus?
Anyway. I've seen people with significantly more defined names, albeit more foreign names, and they get their names horribly fucked up. Like, so it's pretty easy to understand how, like, especially if you're talking with somebody over the phone and you try and say your name and they're like, "What? What'd you say?" And then they add an R to it, and you're like, "That's not even. Nope, you're wrong." But thanks for playing. All right, hold on. So I mentioned that you're a good ass baker, but I have to comment on the fact that in the background, there's a lot going on in this background. Can you explain to me what's happening here?
I may have a small army of squishmallows. I call them my army. I just like to collect. I got 2 axolotls. I got an octopus. I got a stingray and a koi fish. I also got a dinosaur too.
And it just keeps going.
Oh, I have more. I think they're in a different room, which I'm not going to go and grab right now.
Yeah, so they're not part of the army. Or maybe they are. They're just in a different division.
They're off on a battle right now. That's all I'm going to say.
Another reason I was saying that is because I was like, this looks like a Baroque Renaissance, like England looking like art room or something. Like I can't explain it, but maybe one day we'll get into that, and probably not. This is, there's nothing too crazy about what's going on here.
Crocheting and knitting.
Yeah, hold on. Actually, I'm sure my mom would have some fun questions about that because she does that kind of thing a lot. She's not very good at it, but she tries.
It takes time and years of practice and patience. Trust me, I've had to have patience with this one, especially.
Yeah, for anybody who doesn't understand that, what they're talking about is they're making a little knit.
I'm crocheting a little bat for my sister because she asked me if I could do that for her. And I'm like, sure. I will look up a pattern and see what I can do. And I've gotten this far.
So you've made like the start of the head, you've made kind of part of the body, and then you've tried your hardest on making some legs. How long has that taken you? Like just like those 3 portions?
The head has taken me a day, and my finger freaking hurt because of how tiny the string is and how small the hook. It is. I can tell you, it's a lot better to use like a semi-bigger yarn and a hook because it's more easier. And I believe like if I'm going to teach anybody how to crochet, I'm going to be like, okay, go get yourself some big yarn, not super big, but like some big yarn, probably like this big. Trust me.
Oh yeah, that's classic.
I'm working on. It's called a turtle. I have to work on the head though. I ran out of yarn, so I was like, shoot, I gotta put this on a pause. Got more yarn now. I can do that.
So have you been crocheting long enough that you think that you could adequately teach somebody like how to do those kinds of things?
I've been doing this since I was a kid.
Oh shit, yeah, then definitely. Sorry, no disrespect, I just didn't know any better.
So my aunt who lives in the background, I don't know if you've heard a couple of times with when I've joined you for some games that we've played, and her smart remarks in the background.
Oh yes, I love that.
A lot of my friends like to call her my sassy aunt. And I'm like, yep, I get my sass from her. And
yeah, it seems pretty appropriate.
She's the one who actually taught me how to knit and crochet.
Fair enough. I guess, yeah, if she has the authority to teach you how to do that. I was a kid,
and even though I took a long break, I still got it. I still got it. I made
gonna-
a freaking giant ass dinosaur.
For the record, this is probably like a I don't know, like a 2-foot dinosaur, probably, give or take, maybe a little longer. I think 2 feet is a little underestimating. I don't want to be disrespectful to him.
You're fine.
But no, this isn't about crocheting.
We're getting sidetracked.
I love
I'm
getting
here for
sidetracked.
the baking.
I love getting sidetracked, but we're not here to talk about crocheting, goddammit. No, we're here to talk about you and your baking skills. And really, the biggest reason this happened was because I made a sly reference to this podcast once on one of my streams, and you were in there, and I think it caught your attention, and you're like, I do a lot of cool baking shit, and I was like, you know what? Hell yeah! And so every once in a while, they'll come into streams and they'll be like, hey, I baked a cool thing. I'm like, I want to see pictures now. And then they would send me some pictures and things. Because if I'm being dead ass honest, and with all due respect, because you do good work, I can definitively say you do good work. This is one of those things that I don't think people would assume that I would find interesting enough to come and bring onto a podcast, because a lot of the people that I've talked to have done things that I think would be considered a lot flashier. If I, like, that's the word I would use to describe it.
A person just throwing flour all around is very entertaining, I see.
Exactly. Make like a magic show out of it. It's like smoke and mirrors, but it's flour and mirrors or something. I don't know. Yeah. But no, remember to every listeners at home, because I'm projecting onto you what I think other people are thinking. This is the whole point of this is for me to get people who like shit so much that they're willing to talk about it for like an hour. And so if I can find somebody who's down to talk about something for an hour, I don't care how quote unquote boring it is. I don't care how like cooking is a baseline fucking skill. And my buddy Turrent was like the second person to come on because he's so passionate about it that he could just talk for fucking ever about it. That's the whole point of this podcast. You're going to deal with it. So
You're
it sounds like I'm going to
hear that from me too.
Yeah, exactly. So first question, it's not interrogation, I swear. When did you start like baking in general? Like under what context? What was happening?
I've actually started when I was little. I was in the kitchen with my mom, and we were making pies. I can't remember if it was Thanksgiving or if it was Christmas. And she would just throw a bunch of stuff together. I was like, ooh. And then she asked me, hey, Skylar, come help. Come help make a pie. Just put the cherry stuff inside the pie. Because my mom would make cherry pie and pumpkin pie and, yeah.
Banana cream pie?
No, we never made that, hon. To clarify, everybody at home, this is my aunt. We talked about her earlier. She's a sassy woman. Yes, she's the one who taught me how to crochet.
I was gonna say how fresh are these? No, I was actually gonna ask like how fresh are these pies we're talking? Because how fresh are the ingredients that, if we're talking about pies specifically, how fresh were the ingredients that were going into the pies?
What's the ibuprofen doing out here?
Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Anywho, I wouldn't say they were like directly fresh. They were literally canned cherries from a pie, like, and then pie dough. But like, I started out with like my mom wanted brownies, or she would get me these like bag like cookie mix. Like where you just had to add water, oil to it, and just pop them in, make it, and throw it in the oven. I was like, you know what would be better? Making some actual homemade stuff, and that just went off the roof with my family. Literally, I could tell you, if I were to make cookies in my family's household, like back in the day, the cookies would be gone within the day. Like, I would make, literally, I have this one moment of, like, I literally just made, like, oatmeal cookies with cranberries in it, because not a whole lot of people like raisins, and my dad was like, I want some cranberries. I was like, okay. I made oatmeal cranberry like cookies. Literally just took them out of the oven and had them cooling on the pan. And my mom walks in the kitchen as soon as I took them out of the pan, like out of the oven. And she's like, "Those smell really good." I'm like, "Thanks. They need time to cool, though." Literally right
Yoink.
before she left, she yoinks a cookie that's still hot from the pan. I'm like, "Mom, what the heck?"
The hot cookies are more afraid of you than you are of them.
That's true. I have scars from burning, I can tell you.
Fair. Luckily, I don't have any burn scars, but I do have a couple burn stories. Like when I dropped a bowl into like probably 160 degree plus hot soup, and it kind of splashed on me a little bit. That was a little unfortunate. But no, the reason I was asking about the ingredients specifically, I don't know how my brain got on this tangent, but like, fun fact: pumpkin pie, the filling that is made for a pumpkin pie is actually not made from actual pumpkin. I don't know if you. I mean, based on your head nod, I'm going to assume you knew that.
No, a lot of things that you get like in the stores that aren't homemade, where you can just easily buy it, doesn't technically have the true ingredients of what they say they are. They have artificial flavors, which is understandable.
Well, yeah.
Because it's like a cheap, fast way of making it instead of like mass producing the actual thing.
Right. No, I was specifically referring to the fact that like the filling in a pumpkin pie is made out of squash technically or something. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. And there was a podcast that I was listening to where this guy was like, he was like, if you try to make pumpkin pie with actual pumpkin, you're going to be disappointed because it's going to be stringy and it's going to suck. But I mean, yeah, that seems like a pretty humble start, I suppose, to getting into baking in the first place, which is just like. Because like my parents will ask me to help them make something for Thanksgiving, and I don't know why, but the things that they ask me to do, they make me like so mad to the point where I'm like. But then again, also my parents aren't like cooks in the same way that I imagine your family is, so it's a little bit of a different experience where, I mean, there's like even less involvement with the kind of help that I need to be doing, but I'd be like, God damn it, I don't want to do this. This is obnoxious.
I could go on a tangent with how much I've like different types of things I've made. I've made brownies, I've made cakes, I've made pies, I've made cheesecakes, I've made cookies. Like, what kind of thing do you want? I'll make it, get it to you. But like, bam,
You just asked nicely. But I guess that actually kind of, I mean, that gets a little bit into this next question, which is I'm just like, what things have you been working on recently? Like, what are some recent things that you've made?
I've actually been diving into gluten-free baked stuff because recently my sister's been diagnosed with celiac disease, so she can't really have anything that has gluten in it. I was like, well, crap. And she's pretty much really liked when I made her like peanut butter, chocolate chip cookies, like peanut butter things. She constantly sends me like gluten-free things. I've made her a banana peanut butter chocolate chip bread loaf. I've made like an imitation of Kit Kat bars. Not Kit Kat, but Twix bars. She really liked that. She went to Vegas this past couple of months ago, and I made her a gluten-free pumpkin pie. She literally called me that same day, mouthful of this pie, was like, Skylar, this shit's good. I'm not kidding you. I was in the kitchen. I answered the phone. She was like, what is the dough made out of? I'm like, gluten-free flour, because they have gluten-free flour. Not flour, but actual flour that is gluten-free. She's like, okay, did you like caramelize it? Because the way I apparently baked it, it made like caramelization on top of the pie. And she was like, that shit's good. And she was straight up eating this pie as she's talking on the phone with me. It was the funniest thing. I'm like, this is the first time I made this type of pie. I literally took the pie out of the oven because my parents had to leave because they were going to Vegas with her. Threw them on a cookie sheet, threw them in the back of the car. Was like, here, take this. Didn't give it time to cool because it's a 2-hour drive apparently to Vegas. So they were just off they went.
It's a health hazard.
6 hours later, my sister calls me up, says this shit's good. I'm like, I guess they did a good job then.
Yeah, something's good when they don't even have, like, this is going to sound mean, they don't even have the common decency to just finish what they're eating before, like, finish your bite and then talk, goddammit.
She was literally took a bite, called me up while she's eating it, just said, man, this shit's good. I was like, I did a good job.
Just casually, just being the best.
Yeah. It was funny enough because there was a person in the background. I can't remember who she said it was, but she was like, yeah, this person says it's good too. And all he hears is, as they're eating this pie. I'm like, well, I did good then.
Oh, I love that. That's fun. That's like that's me and my family when our family friend. She's like, she's not actually my aunt, but she's like a family friend aunt. She's honorary.
I have that.
Yeah, we're in the same position. But she'll every Thanksgiving / Christmas sort of season, she'll make like I swear to God, she'll make like, I don't even know how to describe. She would literally just make like Jesus Christ. She would make like pumpkin bread, but then give it the architect or the structure of a cinnamon roll, and then just like give it to us to keep in the freezer. And that's the thing that me and my family indulge on every year for the like same thing. But
I'm trying to convince my mom to give me the recipe to make this like cherry cheesecake pie type thing. She made like a few times for like a Christmas, and I'm just like, Mom, you need to make this again. This was really good. Like, she brought one and it was gone within minutes.
Yeah.
Because it was so good. A lot of people are like, man, I wish I could have tried it. Because she only brought one, and we have a large family. So
You don't have a large family. You have a gigantic family.
I mean, like, come from a family that has literal siblings of the many kinds, and then their kids of the many kinds on each side.
Yeah. Oh, Jesus.
So I come from a big family.
A big family. A gigantic
Oh my
family.
gosh, sit down.
No, I was
See
actually
what
I was
mean
gonna ask
by the commentary, yes.
Yeah, it's like having a silly side character.
It's true.
But no, I was actually gonna ask, like, what differences have you noticed? Like, what changes do you have to make to like, what, I don't know, what kind of changes do you have to make to be able to achieve a similar result if you're trying to make a gluten-free something or other?
You have to use different flour. Most definitely. You gotta check literally a lot of the ingredients. If you're getting like vanilla, baking soda, baking powder, you gotta make sure that it says like gluten-free on it. But mainly, you're just checking on the flour. That's the only thing that they're technically allergic to is like the gluten in it.
Huh, okay.
It's the flour. Literally, my sister has to go through so much different products to find something that tastes right to her, doesn't have gluten to make her sick, because if these people with celiac disease will get extremely sick where they have to be hospitalized. I think my sister actually, she ate something really that had gluten in it, and she wasn't aware of it, and she literally immediately was rushed to the hospital and had to get her stomach pumped. Like, it was bad.
Yeah, celiac is tough. Like, I knew a guy who had celiac. Granted, in his case, it seems like it was to a much lesser degree, but it was to a more inconveniencing degree because we'd be in the middle of something and then he would just vanish into the night to, take care of his business in the bathroom, I guess. But yeah, not to the point of getting hospitalized. That's just rough for people like that. I feel bad.
Yeah. So.
But, because I know, so like, the main thing that I come to understand about gluten and its application in cooking in general is that it allows your baked goods to rise properly. So if you're using a gluten-free flour, do you notice those effects like not being there anymore? Like, things look kind of funny?
A little. But like, you're pretty much just following a recipe that's pretty much stated gluten-free. there's not really much difference. It still tastes pretty good. You just don't have that technical like texture of the gluten that you get from like eating an actual like cookie or cupcake or like bar.
Yeah.
Like I go on.
Are you going to the bar?
Oh my god.
I figure that makes. I figure if anything, the issue is that most people who have to bake gluten-free things are not very good at baking in general, and so that's why their products end up coming out kind of like bad to the point where these kinds of things are noticeable. But you're probably like, I follow instructions properly, and my stuff doesn't suck. I don't know what to tell you.
It also depends on the person. Like cooking, you technically have to be fast. Baking, you kind of actually have to slow yourself down because one, you need time for things to actually properly work together. The main thing that makes it rise is actually more of the baking soda or powder actually mixing with the flour to help have that combination chemical effect to help it. And if you're gonna actually make bread, they have like this dry yeast where you mix it with water, and that's what the yeast does.
Causes
it
a lot of the
literally
rise and whatnot.
expands.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So I guess that was just a misunderstanding from me on like a technical point, because I would always
not
just.
a lot of people know that.
Yeah, because not a lot of people do.
In that concept of baking, like
yeah,
the proper concept for your things to raise in the oven is that baking soda.
Yeah, I think it's just that like I tend to think of myself as a person who knows a lot of theory about food, but not a ton of it actually being put into practice, and so that's where you're like, well, if you actually like somebody who actually partakes in this kind of thing very often can tell you what the actual differences are, and like what's actually causing, in this case, what's actually causing like the rise and the expansion of your goods and whatnot. So yeah, that was just clearly a technical misunderstanding on my part. Not like it's a big deal. It's interesting.
Well, you learn new things every day. You learn new
exactly.
things through certain things that people are really passionate about. Like me,
which is the whole
passionate about crocheting, knitting, and baking.
It's like I was gonna say Animal Crossing core. That's not a real thing. I'm just saying shit now to say shit. I just it's not real. What the hell? Sorry. Again, I sometimes I write these down and then I know what I'm talking about in the moment, and then I actually go to read them and I realize they don't make sense. So, from my perspective, it seems like you do bake relatively frequently, just because it's a fun thing, and also because it's like, while it isn't like a necessity, it's just exactly. But in every particular instance of you working on baking something, how much of a product are you actually like making?
So you're pretty much making the amount that the recipe calls for. Sometimes some things like cookies, you'll get big cookies, you'll get small cookies. It all depends on how much of the batter you're pretty much putting on the cookie sheet. Like my family, I would make these chocolate covered cherry cookies, but I wouldn't put the chocolate on it because it was just like, it was weird. It's good when she says ooh. Yeah, my mom, I made these, I found them randomly one day and I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool to make. They're literally like a thumbprint cookie, which is literally a cookie where you put your thumbprint into it.
Oh yeah, like almost like a stamp.
Yeah, it's like a little stamp. You make like this little divot in the cookie, and then you put a cherry in the middle and bake it, and the cookie expands. But
that's
what
fun.
The recipe was calling for, we're making cookies like really small, and my family's like, we need it bigger. We need it bigger. I'm like, okay, I'll make it bigger.
I'll just increase the portion size. God, Jesus.
I'll just put more dough into it.
Fair. But I guess I mean, like, when you're freehanding stuff specifically, like, you're freehanding something, you're like, this is a recipe I know off the cuff. I know how to do this. I know I have the resources. I'm going to make it. Usually, how much are you actually making?
So I'm probably making, like, one portion. of it, which is like, if you're talking about cookies, you're pretty much making like probably like 2 dozens cookies, 2.5. It all depends on how you use the dough.
Well, yeah.
But cakes, you're pretty much making what is specific to like the pan size you're using, like an 8x8, a 9x9, a 13x9, just literally a square.
Yeah, you're like, you're like, for cookies and for things in smaller portions, I'm making probably 2.5 dozen. You know, you're talking about a cake. I'm making a cake, one cake.
One cake.
All right, that's fair. The weird thing is, I think the only reason this question came up was because of a really kind of fucked up thread that I had listened to once, where this guy was talking about how much he loves baking things and how he'll just make a lot of them because it helps him it helps him de-stress, it helps him declutter from life. He constantly has the resources and he finds it fun to do these kind of things and experiment with things. And then some tenuous situations happened that were very not good for him and his family, but it was like he's making very large portions of things just because of the resources that he has at his disposal, and with you, you're like I'm gonna make, I'm gonna make it probably about as much as is asked of me by my family, which is fair. Do you have
I'm
any?
technically just making one portion. Well, it's just me and my aunt here, so the only 2 people who are technically be eating this is just us 2. Versus like in a household of 5 people, you're gonna have to probably make dozen because they're gonna constantly come out, gather a few, and run away, eat them, and then come back for more.
Yeah, and if they know, if it's one of those ones that is a crowd pleaser, you're like, all right, I need to prepare for the fact that people are just gonna wipe through these things.
Going through school, I had to specifically hide the cookies I wanted to take with me to go and share with my friends, because if I didn't, my family would have had them gone by that evening. I'm not kidding you.
Would they have like some kind of respect for your wishes if you were like, hey, I want to take these to school to show these to my friends. Can you guys like chill, please?
No, this is all for us. You made this here in our house. This is all for us. I'm like, I gotta share with my friends though.
Like, please, I can't just make these at school. They're not allowing me. I can't. I'm not in the home ec class or whatever the hell they call it for long enough. Oh golly. And then okay. So I said that you are baking like relatively often, but like how many times a week or how many times a month do you actually find yourself being like, all right, sit down, follow a recipe, make my own thing, just make something?
It's whenever I feel like it. It's whenever I'm not really busy focusing on her and actually like feel in the mood. Like I have a piece of paper that I have different people's names on, that I have different like things I've said. Oh, I'm gonna make you these, and I'm gonna make you this. I literally have cookies that I promised someone for Christmas because I was going through a really bad situation back in December when I asked him, hey, do you want me to make you like this Christmas goodie box that I used to make for a friend before he passed back in 2020? And they were like, sure. And then after I said that, just stuff went downhill. And it was just like, oh God, now I can't do it because it's just stuff happens. So now I gotta pick myself back up again. And sometimes that takes time. So it's like, before I left to go to Phoenix, once I got back from my sister's place, I was like, all right, time to roll up my sleeves and get on this. And I just went haywire on cookies and all kinds of things. Fair.
And so you have like a task list. You're like, all right, these are the things that I need to get done. But given that it's already September, you're like, I have all this time. You're like, if everything goes smoothly for the next 3 months, I can secure you that thing I promised you last December.
Last year. Like, I have that friend who's like, where's my cookies? I'm like, I'm getting there. Things are literally still hectic. It's calming down, but I'm working on it, I promise. Like, I'm just joking with you. I'm like, keep bringing this up. How is this a joke?
This is no longer a joke. No, that's just their way of checking in on you because they don't know how to properly express their concern for their friends.
I guess.
like it's like I have a buddy who he's kind of going through a little bit of financial trouble because of his job kind of being a pain in his ass, but he also said that he wanted to buy my old computer from me. So every time I want to check on him and make sure he's doing well financially, mentally, and everything, I'm like, hey, what's your situation looking like on the computer? And I'm sure from his perspective he's like, this fucking leave me alone. And I'm like, hey man, I just want to make sure that you like have a job and you don't like want to die, you know?
Yeah.
So, but no, that's fair. I mean, I guess any hobby, especially if it's one that you aren't like you're not a professional, you're not actively getting paid for doing a thing. It's just like, I'm gonna do this when I feel like it. I'm not on a set schedule.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's fair.
At some point soon, I'm gonna be like, I gotta make more Thin Mint cookies. I gotta make more peanut butter cookies. I gotta make another apple zucchini loaf because apparently that's really good.
I like that. Sounds like a fun time.
Yeah. It's gonna be another one of those weeks where I'll come into stream and be like, hey DJ, I made a freak ton of things again. You
like,
want to see pictures?
Yeah, I don't know what the deal was, but the last time you sent me just a batch of the things that you were making, I think I might have even said this in the stream. I was like, damn, those are the biggest Thin Mints I ever did see.
Yeah. So I was like wanting to test it out. I wanted to make small ones and then I want to make big ones because it was just a little play thing I wanted to try because I found a recipe and I was like, you know what? I haven't seen any Girl Scouts and I want some Thin Mints. Man, I want some Thin Mints. And I made some. And I was like,
I'll take care of this myself.
I'll take care of this myself. Yes.
That's a respectable goal.
And apparently my family also liked them literally before I left to go and dog sit again. I was like, all right, I made a bunch of cookies. They're sitting in the fridge. So like, we're going to have to break in the house and steal those cookies then as a joke. I'm like, man, that means I got to make more then.
Yeah, you're like, all right, back to the store. Got to go buy my, whatever makes up the their component parts.
Yeah.
But
I come back home when I open up the fridge, the cookies are still there. I was like, did you guys like fail at your job of like stealing my cookies or so?
They're like,
oh right, you had cookies in the fridge.
You're like, were you just waiting for my green light to tell you that you could take them?
I told him like, you are free to take them. I can easily make more. It's not difficult.
You're like, was your attempt to get my stuff under your grubby little belts, was it a failure? And they were like, well, I don't know how to tell you this. Your lock is broken, but we still couldn't get into the house to take them. And you're like, well, guess I gotta go get a lock repairman or whatever the fuck.
Because I just gotta put a new lock on the door then.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's yeah. Just get a more secure lock. It's like, you will not steal my baked goods, god damn it. Have a Ring camera, and they show up, and you're like, yeah, scram. But do you have any like go-to comfort dishes that you make, or are you really just a person who's like, you know what, today I'm feeling like making this. Next week I'm feeling like making this.
But then sometimes my comfort is probably making the peanut butter cookies. I actually told my family I was thinking about making peanut butter blossoms, which is literally a peanut butter cookie that has a chocolate kiss in the middle. That is literally what it's called, a peanut butter blossom.
Oh, these are so fun. I've never had one of them, but they look really cool.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I don't have kisses, honey. You can't have any.
Oh, come on.
I'm sorry, I don't have kisses. I gotta get some.
They haven't come back around in stock yet at the grocery store. You're like,
no, it's just a thing every time I go to the store. It brushes over my head. Like, oh, man, I forgot to get kisses.
You're like, all right, I guess another week without those peanut butter blossoms. They're like, damn it.
Yep.
Come here, I'll give you a kiss.
Fair. So I guess with that in mind, I assume, are those peanut butter cookies usually the ones that you end up making? Are those the ones that you think you've probably made the most amount of times strictly for your own pleasure and not for the sake of somebody asking you to make something?
Actually, I feel like it's the other way around. I've made more peanut butter things for family than to like make peanut butter stuff for myself. Cause like apparently my family is just like all hooked on that peanut butter. It's funny because I think
Yeah,
What kind of
the
special
I
peanut
one
butter are you
person
using?
who's
peanut
pretty
butter
much asked me
cookies.
to make it the most is to be my sister. When I was living with her for 8 months to help babysit,
Yeah.
she was like, "Can I get some peanut butter chocolate chip cookies, please?" I'm like, "Sure thing. Let me just
Yeah.
get all the ingredients that you have here and make some cookies."
I mean, shouts out to them for actually having the ingredients just,
Little Peter,
on retainer for that.
he
But
would chomp
I mean-
on a cookie.
so that does beg the question then, like what is the baked good that you have found yourself making the most for yourself specifically and not for other people?
Oh,
Probably brownies.
Oh,
ooh, that sounds good.
yeah, that's a solid
We
choice.
don't have any brownies. I
It's
gotta
just
get
a
ingredients for brownies.
She's like, it's just a suggestion.
I have
But-
cookies sitting in the fridge, and she constantly asks me every night, "Hey, can I get a cookie?" But they're not for like us to eat. They're technically for a friend because I made them for a friend, and I just gotta finish up the other half of this thing to make it. Is literally the friend I told you about earlier was like, "Hey, where's my cookies, man?"
Yeah.
I literally
You're like,
have
finally
half
they're
their-
done.
Like half the cookies I made for you are already done. They're sitting in the fridge, ready for me to send out to you. I might honestly just make a whole new batch for them. Honestly,
Yeah, you're like, all right, so they're done, but here's the problem is that my aunt keeps trying to eat them, and they're like, what?
yeah, pretty much.
Oh, it's funny. I can imagine. Man, people who like, I have a lot of friends who like will have like a group gathering, and they'll be like, I have like a lot of I have a big multicultural influence in my friend group. Like, there's a couple of white guys in the group, but then we have like people from different regions of like South America. I have a guy who was born in Mexico, and then I have people who are like, one of my friends is Cambodian, three of my friends are Vietnamese, and a bunch of other stuff. And so like whenever we have these gatherings, I have a few friends from each of them. They're like, all right, here's something that we that we like make in our household, and I'm like, that shit's cool. So like I really appreciate that there are people who, well, I shouldn't say I appreciate that there are people who do that, because everyone's going to do that, but I do think it's cool just that people will do that for their friends, because all I do is I show up and I just like be a moderate a nuisance to people.
I'm literally gonna be the person that just brings a freak ton of cookies and probably some brownies over here, or maybe some cookies and cupcakes, and I'd be like, "I brought shit. You want
Yeah.
some?" It's gonna be gone.
You're like, this is my offering. Here, take this.
Is this my acceptance to the group? Here you go. I brought goodies. Will you
You're like, will
accept
you finally
me?
acknowledge me as a friend? They're like, we've been friends for 6 years, and I'm like, yeah, but
But
good lord.
I'm making you laugh too much, aren't I?
Well, it's not. I mean, well, it's kind of that, but it's also just like I just have something in my throat. I think I don't know what's going on. I don't. I haven't had enough water in my system today. That's
Should
not
go
true. It's
drink
just-
water then.
Well, yeah, but I don't know if you noticed where like there's like a podcast that's being done right now. I can't just like walk away. Well, I mean, it might pick me up from a distance, but I don't really want to do that. Let's see here. I feel like I might know the answer to the first half of this question, maybe not so much the second, which is like, what ingredients in general do you find yourself going through the most, just based off of the way that you buy them and how much you have to use them in any particular recipe? And then which ones do you go through the least?
Butter, brown sugar. I would have to say are the three most things that I constantly go through way quicker than the flour, the baking soda, the baking powder, vanilla, like, because many different types of recipes, even in cooking, you're pretty much using butter, brown sugar in some cases, and sugar in some other cases. Like,
Yeah,
those
and
are
I
the
imagine
top three. Like, I've constantly had to buy out at the store and be like, "Oh, well, I'm out of brown sugar, I'm out of sugar, and I'm out of butter. Let me go get more."
Yeah, I was thinking flour for a second, but now that I think about it, it makes less sense for flour to be in that list because of the fact that you can get flour in just like these massive, bags, and you cannot say the same thing for probably anything else. So that makes sense.
You could go to the store and try to find a nice big bag of brown sugar, and you could send it my way. I'd be like, "Sweet, thanks. I got enough brown sugar right here." No. That'll probably be
I like to eat the brown sugar.
She's also the reason why I'm also out.
No.
I have to constantly hide my brown sugar from her because she'll just open it, take a spoonful, and eat it, and then walk away, and I don't even notice, and then it's gone. And I'm like, great, I thought this thing was full.
Yeah, nope. Man,
No.
brown sugar is nice, and it's like a nice ingredient, but like I feel like how enjoyable could it really be to just have by itself? It's like sand, or like clay, or like I don't know.
What is it? Oh shoot! It was a toy that came out. It was like magic sand.
Oh my god!
Together.
Yeah, what the hell was that? Wait. Oh, it was called kinetic sand. I think that was the brand name of the item. I know what you're talking about. Wait a minute, they have a website?
Sand. No, I'm not kidding. They do. It was literally sand that you could compress together, and then like you could just poke it, and it just falls apart. That's literally brown sugar. Like you could compact it to make a nice thing, but like the minute you poke it, it just dissolves into like.
Man, kinetic sand scammed the shit out of us. They really found a way to somehow infuse water with sand and have it never dry out, and then said, "Here, take it." They just gave us pre-wetted sand. It's absolutely ridiculous. What about the things you go through the least? I have to imagine they would be like ingredients that are only used in one very specific baked good or something. But
no, it all depends on how much you use of it too.
Well, yeah.
Like baking soda, baking powder, vanilla. Like you're using literally half a teaspoon to maybe a full teaspoon, and like if you have like a nice big bottle of vanilla, like you're not gonna go through that as fast as you will with brown sugar, which you're using like half a cup, a cup and a half.
Yeah, and it's you're using a lot more of it as well because it's like dense, or because you're packing it and whatnot. But yeah, dude, you get like one of those industrial sized thing of vanillas, and you're like, I'm set for another 3 years, probably.
Literally. Oh, this will last me quite some time now. I'll get some more when I run out. Like this much left.
Yeah, exactly. At that point, you're like the bottle's gonna get to a certain point where, yeah, exactly. But no, I mean, it's kind of to be expected. I shouldn't be surprised because I figured because
flour is literally in the middle. It's like, yeah, you can run out of it a lot quicker than a lot of the other ingredients, but it's not going as quick as these other ingredients. So
yeah, exactly, because you're using more of it, but you also have more of it in general. So, and especially if you're one of those people that you are capable of actually keeping your ratios of everything correct, because there's a thing that would circulate around the internet every few years, and it's like, here's the problem with your cookies, and it would show a bunch of pictures of a bunch of cookies and then say like, if it looks like this, it might be because you've added too much of this. If you not enough of this, you added too much egg in it or whatever, something like that. So I imagine if you don't run into that issue and you are keeping your ratios pretty accurate and close, and you're not like,
you're a wizard. I will say you are a wizard, because I can tell you the most professional bakers are still going to run into the situations of like, there might be a little too much flour, there might be a little less, there's not enough baking powder. Like, they're still going to run into those issues every once in a while. If a person out there is 100% like perfect with each of their thing, they are a magical wizard. Because I run into those issues too. Like, I made a peanut butter cookie batch, and I added a little bit too much flour, and you could tell that there was a little too much because it tasted dry, and the cookies they would literally the moment you touch them, they kind of like fall apart. You could tell because it's a little dry. That's what flour does. But like, yeah, I swear, if there's a person out there that every single time they make baked goods and it turns out perfect, I'm like, what witchery are you using?
Yeah, I was gonna say. It's like if you're one of those.
Which academy did you come from?
I don't know. Maybe they have like an OCD and they're like, I will not fuck these cookies up. So help me. But no, I was gonna say, like, if you're a person who actually can keep those measurements very close and accurate relative to one another, you probably aren't going to run into an issue of, say, running out of flour very often because of how much of it you actually have. But yeah, then number 2, you're a wizard, and I need to understand where you went to learn your trickery.
Yes. I must know, because I would love to be like that. Or like every batch that I just bring out is just absolute perfect. Like, I understand that I make some good things, but the recurrence of like my sister's phone call with the first time making these gluten-free pumpkin pies, it was so funny.
I love that. But I mean, ultimately, even little infractions like that, even like, the margins of error that you might be running into are still, like, most of the time not going to be so crazy that somebody's going to, like, they're not going to care that much. They might notice what effect it has on them, what effect it has on whatever they're eating. Like in your case, you said, if you have too much flour, it'll probably break apart a little too much because it doesn't really have that structure anymore because it's a little too dry. People might notice that, but that's not going to stop them from thinking that it's one of the better cookies they've maybe had. Potentially, unless you, like, suck. Which, based on what you're telling me, you don't.
Yeah, like, you can speak to somebody who cooks, and they'll be like, yeah, I'm really bad at baking, because baking requires a specific amount, or it just messes it up. While cooking, you can add a little bit of this and a little bit of this. You can add a little bit more of this thing, and it still perfectly comes out fine.
Yeah.
But baking, you have to be specific. Again, like what I said earlier, baking requires you to have a little more patience than cooking, where it's like, get it done as quick as possible. Not
essentially
super quick, but like, yeah, it still requires you to be fast.
Yeah. Baking in theory sounds fun, and I like the concept. Like, the things that come out of a successful baking journey, I really enjoy. But Jesus Christ, I don't know if I do. Well, do I? I maybe have the patience. I was about to say that I don't, and then I was like, maybe I do. I recant everything I just said. Goodness. This could either go in a great direction or this could go in a horrible direction. We'll have to see.
You must ask away.
Well, because it's another double-sided question. So, like, what are your favorite and least favorite parts about baking and or just cooking in general?
The least favorite part about baking is probably the having the right equipment for certain things. Like, I couldn't really bake much over a long period of time because I had a finicky hand mixer. Like, the button to, like, start it just would not work sometimes. It was literally, I'd press it, it wouldn't turn on. But if I press it in a certain position, it'd turn on. But if I use that the next time, it doesn't work. It's like... So
the button's on a random timer.
Yes, it's like a random thing, and it was so annoying. But it was like a really good, like, brand mixer too. It was like, it did the job done well when it worked. It, like, yeah, like, I think my least favorite thing was, like, not having the right equipment when you needed it. And cooking, like, just, I'm a slow person, so baking is more at my speed versus cooking, where you got to be quicker, as I've stated. Yeah. So in cooking, it's just the speed of things. You got to be quick on things, and it's just like, I can't do that. I'm more of a slow paced person, so my brain can process and be like, did I do this? Did I do this? Or I start overthinking.
Right. Easy, I imagine, because most of the time it seems like, I mean, I'm just trying to think of it in my head. A lot of baking really does feel like it's take all of your component parts, mix them together in an appropriate way, which an appropriate way is either you put everything together or you mix your dries and then mix your wets and then combine them together, or add your wets to your dries or your dries to your wets, because that actually apparently does make a difference.
Oh, it does.
Seems like you're doing a lot of that.
It does.
We'll get into that in a second. But it's like you do all of those things, and then you just make sure that you get everything you need to the right consistency and the right. You just have to make sure that your mixture is correct, and then you let it kind of create its own magic. And with cooking, it's like, all right, I have to make sure that I do not leave this on the pan for too long. I can't leave this chicken on the pan for too long, because if I do, then it'll get dry and it's going to suck. And it'll burn whatever sauce I put on the chicken in the pan at the bottom or something like that. And you're like, I got to be quick. And then your brain gets all scattered, and then you fall to the floor and cry.
Yes, pretty much.
So no, I totally, I don't know if I necessarily resonate with that, but I totally understand like how that can appeal to people a lot more. You're like, all right, let me take this time, figure out these are the things that I need. These are the other things that I need. Here's the best way that I should combine them for myself. I can take my time while I'm doing that. And really the only things that require timing like that is like, how long do you mix your mixture? And then how long are you actually letting it cook itself? So it's like your biggest time crunch.
Yeah. But
yeah.
If I find a recipe that stumps me, kind of like how I did at one point of my life, tried to make macaroons.
Ooh.
It did not go very well, because I don't think I had the right proper ingredients and like tools to try to do it. I just wanted to try it for fun to see if I can make it. It did not turn out well. I was like, great, that was a huge dump. Well, I'll try it again some point in the future when I actually have the right tools to make it.
Yeah. So, I mean, with time, I mean, the thing that I really appreciate about what you're doing is whenever you do come into like chats and like Discord things talking about what you've been doing, you're also like, I've been experimenting with figuring out how to make this kind of thing. So for you, you're like, all right, I messed up these macaroons, whatever. I don't know if there's any actual difference. I think we just stole the word from the French. But like, you take those and you're like, all right, I fucked these up horribly. Let me take some time to figure out how I can make it better next time. And then next time you're like, hey, this was a success. And we're like, congratulations. We do a little golf clap.
But yeah, I think it was like that with me with making this apple zucchini loaf. I made it once, brought it to my family. I was like, well, I hope my family likes this, because I haven't tried it. Because I'm typically a person who's like, okay, their texture of like liking something is a hell of a lot different than me, because I like things that are really sweet. So I'm like, I'm going to drift toward things that are on the sweet side with like my family members. They're more of like my test subjects, my guinea pigs. In terms. So like typically when I make something, my family will try it first and be like, this is pretty good. I'm like, sweet.
You're like, all right, that's the first step. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first step. And then I'll try it. I'm like, I didn't do a bad job. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm more of a people pleaser, apparently.
I mean, you know, as long as it doesn't get you walked over, sure, it's probably fine. But let's get into this a little bit. So what are the fundamental differences in mixing your wets versus your dries, and what does doing one over the other actually accomplish, or what are the downsides of it?
So mixing your dry ingredients just helps like that extra step, instead of like having to throw it all in like one pot. And like, because certain things combined with a different ingredient can have different chemical reactions. So like, if you add the flour in, you're gonna get this like really doughy thing, and then you won't get, if you don't add in the baking soda with the flour and all that, you might not get the same effect of it rising. Like as you stated earlier with the different pictures of cookies, like there's one where it said like, oh, you forgot to add the baking soda, which caused a really flat cookie,
Yeah.
and it didn't look like a normal cookie on how it's supposed to raise. I don't know how you can't tell that that's the reason why your cookies are rising is because of the baking soda.
I think it's probably because a lot of people who are very, very much beginners or amateurs at baking probably don't think about those little things. Like, it's weird to say that because baking really is comprised of like 10 things that you need to kind of keep track of, which is like, it's like flour, sugar, brown sugar, salt, baking powder / baking soda, depending on whatever is necessary. And then like, eggs and then like a couple of other kind of small things, I guess. And so it's weird that you do that, but then you just forget about 2 of those probably integral ingredients.
Like,
But
again, like you said, like you have to keep track of like 10 things. Sometimes like your mind is so distracted that you forget that one thing that is very easily done. I've done it like earlier in my year of baking. I've mixed flour and salt, not salt, but sugar and salt one point, and I accidentally like, oh shoot, I added too much salt and not the sugar that I needed, and they became really salty.
yeah, that happens. I saw a video once of a guy. He was making what the hell was he making? I think he was making like I think he was like making something with pancakes or something. And because he runs a cooking show, he's like, here's a bunch of bowls of the ingredients that I need. And then here's a thing of salt, which is, to pinch from and add as you think is appropriate. And he turned his brain off because he was talking, and he took this just like, I mean, probably a quarter cup of salt, maybe, if not more, maybe nearing on a half cup, and dumped the whole thing in. He was like, oh shit, that doesn't belong in there.
I've done it. I can attest to it. Like, I turned my brain off for a second, and I did that.
So yeah, I that makes sense as to why you would need to add them in that way, because I know that like it's almost like what, depending on which ingredients you add into, depending on, like, this is going to sound dumb, ingredient B getting added into ingredient A will more than likely take the form of ingredient B. And so that's why it matters more which one you put in first, because you're either going to end up with, say, the most baseline example is you're going to either end up with like a runnier mixture or a much drier, more solidified mixture. So I can understand how doing those 2 things would lead to that happening. And then,
Yeah. And if you look at like pre-made things like brownies and like these cookie boxes and cake boxes, they have like an instruction for altitude. Altitude is also a thing that goes into effect. Yes, you wouldn't think that, but
altitude
it
makes
does.
a big difference in everything, apparently.
Like, trust me, like it's weird. It's weird. It's mocking me.
But what kinds of differences does it actually make? Like, what changes when you're talking about like high altitude versus low altitude? What's happening?
So sometimes, like, depending on the altitude, like sometimes your baked goods might rise higher than they're supposed to be. Some might not rise as high. It's weird. It is
so weird. That is very bizarre.
And then sometimes you have to mess with the temperature because of the altitude too. Because like, if you know with altitude, you're getting more oxygen when you're down lower versus when you're up higher. I think, or maybe it's the other way around. I can't remember. I bounce between like being up in the mountains, being down in the valley. I live in the middle. It's like either you're getting too much or you're getting too little.
Yeah. I just had to Google this. It says, so I literally Googled, why does altitude affect baking? And it says your air pressure is lower, so foods may take longer to bake. Your temperatures and or your bake times may need to be increased. Liquids evaporate faster, so the amounts of flour, sugar, and liquids may need to be changed to prevent batter that is too moist, dry, or gummy. Your gases also expand more, so your doughs rise fast. That's, wow.
I didn't even have to read this. It already, like, anticipated this. just like, with my knowledge of things that I have, I'm just like anticipated an answer, and you just looked it up, and it literally is just the thing I just said.
Confirmed the whole thing. Yeah, I guess that sometimes the internet's able to explain things in a way that makes more sense to me.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, you know, like this, the reason altitude affects baking is the same reason that people who live in low altitude environments have a hard time adjusting to high altitude environments because of the lack of oxygen in their system that their bodies aren't used to, essentially.
Yeah, literally.
So what I'm getting at is that ultimately this means that baking is still super alchemy based, right? Like that seems to be appropriate to
I guess
say.
you can call me a wizard then, because I'm apparently a whoosh. I can make some great things.
Whoosh, you now have brownies.
Low altitude.
Oh, I like that.
Typically with baking, you're pretty much using your first batch as like a test to see if like you need to change some things, if you need to add more things to like your pretty much your batter, because like you're literally not getting the exact recipe to like in cooking. Like you cook your chicken at a certain time and you want your instant results right there. With baking, you have to literally put it into the oven, wait the exact amount of time that it requires, and then pull it out to see your results instead of sitting there and actually like watching it like with cooking.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that like if we're talking about like there's an Australian, he might be Australian guy that I see on TikTok all the time who makes like breads and things. And literally like baking is something that can like the amount of time that you have to wait for something to sit, like waiting for your dough to proof, depending on how long you're actually leaving it in like the fridge to be able to let it proof, how long you're letting the dough actually rise, how long you're mixing together ingredients to actually like, you know, on top of making sure you're adding the appropriate ingredients to the other appropriate ingredients. The other important part is like, how long are you actually spending mixing them together? Because that can make a difference. So a lot of that stuff is like, it is kind of trial and error. And so it is appropriate to say, I made this the way that I always make it. Here are the issues that came up with it this time compared to last time. And I know how I need to fix that. So let me do this instead now.
Yeah, there is a thing in baking where you can overmix your batter. And you could have followed the recipe to a T, but the moment you overmix it, it could change your product into an entirely different thing. So you have to be careful with your mixing too.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's funny. I just think it's funny. You're just like it's like if you're 30 seconds off, you fucked it up. Don't do that. But what kind of like content do you consume around cooking and baking in general? Like, are there people that you watch make things, or is most of the content you surround just like recipes on how to just make things?
Probably just recipes on how to make things. Technically, it's like you're pretty much like kind of similar with cooking. You're like you see something, and you're like, I could make that, and you can you could test it out to see if you can or can't. Sometimes like when I was younger with the whole macaroons, I looked at it and I was like, I could possibly make that. Well, let me try it out. And it failed entirely. Okay, I couldn't make that, but I could always try again to do it again. Yeah,
but maybe I can in the future.
An entirely different result.
Yeah. So yeah, that's fair enough. The reason I ask that is because like a lot of the cooking content that I consume on the internet is mostly stuff that doesn't actually, I mean, some of it helps me because it is still tutorial related, but a lot of it is kind of just entertaining stuff because I like seeing the personalities of the people that I consume. So I didn't know if you had anybody like that you kind of did the same thing with.
I just like sometimes I'll see like little videos of people like with food that they make that is like baked goods. I'm like, I could possibly make that. Or like I have like random recipes I'll pop up on my recommendation of like Google things, and it's just like, oh, I have a recipe for salted caramel chocolate chip cookies. I'm like, ooh, that sounds pretty good. I'm gonna save this so that I can make it later.
Yeah. Do you ever run into one of those situations where you're watching somebody make something because just the video entices you, and then at some point in the video you're like, all right, they did that wrong? They fucked that up.
Well, everybody's cooking style is a lot different than another person's. Like, yeah, you could teach someone how to do something, but their style of doing it is going to be entirely different than what yours is.
Yeah.
So sometimes, like, you'll watch a video and you're just like, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Entirely doing it wrong. Like, stop doing it wrong. But you can't do anything because they've already done it and you're pretty much just watching a video of them pretty much doing it. But, like, sometimes their way of doing it results in a very similar product of what if you've done it your way. Yeah, they'll taste entirely different, but they still kind of look similar, right?
Yeah. It's almost like two people using two different equations to get to the same answer, sort of.
Yeah, literally.
So, all right, fair enough. Coming from a non-judgmental place, I respect that. With me, I see somebody do something and I'm like, the way that you're doing this is pissing me off. Stop. But no, that's respect. But that's very on brand for you. You're just like, wow, look at the way that this person does this. It's not the way that I do it, but it's interesting to see how they do it. I appreciate that. I guess kind of in like a similar vein, what are some like, I guess, myths surrounding baking in general that you have like tried yourself and you've been like, yeah, this just straight up is not true. Like that is incorrect.
Oh, I tried, I do not recommend using applesauce to replace eggs or oil in making brownies. It failed entirely for me. Yes, you could use...
What happened? What?
It made the dough, like, really moist. And it didn't...
Yeah.
The chemical reaction just did not happen to, like, make it where it was, like, proper. But you could, like, do it in cookies, you could do it in bread, cakes, like, other things. But I brought my mindset to, okay, well, I don't have any eggs, but I have some applesauce. Let me try to, like, replace the eggs with the applesauce in these brownies. Failed entirely. I was like, oh, looked up.
Okay.
Yeah, your batter's going to become more moist. I'm like, well, I should have read this before I did it.
Fair. No, I was about to ask why you would ever do that, and now I'm realizing why you had to do that at the time. But like, what do you think is like, what is different about a brownie batter that would prevent that? Because, well, I guess brownie batters are like, they're not like they're like still thick, but they're not very like solidified most of the time. So I guess is that why that didn't work?
I can't really recall, but all I know is like I tried it. It did like the whole process of it just did like it worked. Like the way that it looked like it worked. Cause like how brownie batter typically looks is like kind of like moist and it's like all together, and it comes like a it's like a more fudgy like cake batter.
Yeah.
But like the moment I put it in the pan and I cooked it,
Nope.
The chemical reaction in the baking just did not connect and it just became really bad. I was like, oh, there goes that. I guess I'm not doing that again.
You're like, all right, I'll keep that in my lexicon so that I don't fuck that up in the future.
But yeah, like, since there's like the whole people out there with being all vegan and stuff, like a whole entire replacement for like oil and eggs, you could literally use applesauce in. I've done it with my apple zucchini loaf and it literally comes out fantastic, and it's like I literally didn't do anything different except for replace an egg with applesauce, or literally vice versa. It's literally just follow the recipe. I got this result, did it an entirely different way of using a different ingredient. Literally the exact same thing, came out the exact same way.
But with the brownies, just no.
Just no.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Like, I don't know what I was expecting when I asked that question, but the last thing I would have expected is, no, you cannot replace eggs for applesauce in a brownie recipe. I'd be like, is that a Mad Lib? What the fuck did you just say to me? So
I can
fair
tell you
enough.
from experience, replacing an egg with applesauce and brownies did not work. It was weird.
Yeah, fair enough. I don't even. Again, I don't know what I was expecting. It just wasn't that, and that's fine. You know, you learn something new every day.
I can't remember any other myths that I've tried. If I look at myths and baking, I could be like, okay, I've tried this, and I could probably tell you, but there are none that come to my mind except for you could replace an egg with applesauce, and it literally works out fantastic in cakes and loaves, apparently. And I was like, man, I wish I knew this sooner.
Yeah, fair. It's like you do one of those things. So there's these videos that I see on TikTok all the time of a guy who was like he's like a carpenter or like what the hell? I don't know. He's like a builder, like an architect or not an architect. I don't know. I don't know. He's like a person who works with like tools and nail and wood. He's like a repairman, something adjacent to that. And there will be all these like TikTok hacks of like that are similar to that. Like you can literally one of the videos was a guy taking an entire saw blade, cutting it in half, bolting it to pieces of wood, and then bolting it onto a pegboard to use it as a means of holding your wrenches because of the shape of the saw. And the guy watching it was like, "What the fuck? No, why? You are not about to tell me you're turning a saw into a shelf rack. Are you kidding me?" So like, that's what you should do next. Is like go on the internet, find baking videos, like life hack baking videos from like 5-minute crafts or something, and be like,
Oh,
"No, that doesn't work. You suck."
those videos annoy me so badly because there's literally like I've seen like people do it and then the results of it is entirely different than what they did. It's like what?
Oh yeah, like they very
peanut butter
clearly used a
and
different end
putting
product.
hot coal into it, you get diamonds. But what? You can't get coal. You can't get diamonds from coal. What? In the middle of peanut butter, I literally watched someone do this. They're like they opened up a nice like fresh jar of peanut butter. They heated up a coal to like where it's like almost like whatever coal does. They literally took it, stuck it in the peanut butter, which did melt around it because peanut butter does melt. And it like after some time, after like 24 hours or so, they opened it up. There was like a peanut butter like covered charcoal thing, and they just broke in. There's like little diamonds. I'm like, you're kidding me? That does not work. Wait.
Yeah, what kind of clickbait shit is this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate those videos, but I know that there will be videos of them. It'll be videos of them like actually trying to teach people how to do something, but you can very clearly tell that they don't actually know what they're talking about. And so, they'll just like, but they don't know what they're talking about, but baking's a hot button thing or whatever. They're trying to get people to click on their videos, and then they just provide them with the most blatant of misinformation so that they can just make more money. You just find videos like that and be like, nope, incorrect. You cannot do it like that. Nice try.
Yeah. Those videos aggravate me because it's like some of the stuff you just watch is just like, what the heck are you doing? This like those two things do not work together. Like, why are you doing it?
Right. I guess ultimately what this means is if for whatever reason you're in one of my streams and you hear me say something that is completely factually incorrect about baking, I'm gonna need you to be like, hey, no, shut up.
No, DJ, stop. That's
You don't
not
know
right.
what you're talking about. People look up to you for advice. Why you're giving them incorrect advice? like, damn it, I'm sorry. So yeah, well, it's good. So remember, folks, don't try and replace an egg for applesauce if you're or don't replace an egg with applesauce if you're making brownies. We've got 2 more things here. Oh wait, no, sorry, only one. I can't read. Honestly, in your opinion, what dish do you think is the best if it is done near perfectly?
Lemon bars. Like I've made lemon bars. Yeah. Do you want me to make a list of all of the things that I have made? Because it is a lot.
I think if you had a list on Retainer, I would allow you to read off of it. But if you don't have a list, I'd say maybe save the list for now. Or if you don't have a list right now, you can start mocking one up. But like we don't have that kind of time to just like wait for you to write the whole list up. Like while this is still live. But no, why do you say lemon bars? What's the hubbub?
Because it's just like the way that the bar portion is, it could come out differently, entirely differently. Because I've done it multiple times, but like I did it wrong at one point, and it just turned out horrible. It was like, what? No. Oh, there went that. And what was another?
Was it one of those things where was it one of those things that you made
different.
and you were like this sucks, and then you tried to learn how to make it better again? Like how have you escalated in trying to make the lemon bars good?
Well, I followed the recipe that I had. I guess I did it entirely different than what I did, or I added a little bit of too much ingredient, and it turned out horrible. It was like, what did I do wrong? I followed everything. It might have been the temperature, because I did it on an entirely different day. Maybe it was too hot, because I live in the lovely state of Arizona where, we go up to 115 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, which is
Christ.
oh, so great.
Golly, yeah, dude. I don't want to get too sidetracked on this, but holy shit, I have a client who lives in Arizona, and a couple months ago, I've definitely told this story before, but this is something that I think you need to know about. So a couple months ago, I called him because it was our weekly meeting, and I'm only 22. He's probably like at least in his mid 30s, maybe older. And so I don't really know what to talk with him about at the very beginning of a call before getting into business matters. And so I'll just ask him about the weather. And he lives in Arizona, and he'll be like, we'll be talking back and forth. And like, he'll ask me about the weather. And one time in a 3-week span, this is what happened. I was like, hey, it's like raining a ton right now. And he was like, oh, dang, it's like getting up to like 80s for us right now. And I was like, oh, okay. It's still like 60s for us and still profusely raining. And then next week I call him and he's like, how's the weather? And I'm like, it's like snowing right now. And he's like, oh, for us, we're like nearing peaking into the 90s. I'm like, what is going on here? And then I call him next week and he's like, how's the weather? And I'm like, it's fucking hailing. And he's like, we've gone over 90 degrees. I'm like, we live one state apart. How could this have happened? What's going on here? So yeah, shouts out to all my Arizona homies. Y'all are not allowed to have shit, I guess.
No, for like 2 months straight, like the temperatures have been so bad that things have been melting.
Yeah, I've seen videos of stuff melting off of like people's cars. I'm like, that's a safety hazard.
Welcome to the state of Arizona, where we don't get rain, or we don't live next to the ocean, where we get the nice humid air. No, we live in the dry part of the world.
You live in the desert state. I don't give a shit what anybody says about Texas. No,
we're literally living in the desert. There's nothing like at all. I've had friends who live like on the other side of the United States, and they're like, take back your heat. I'm like, no, I'm enjoying my rain. We haven't had this much rain in a long ass time. Like, we
You're
want
like, I don't
this.
want it. You can have it. I don't want it.
Just enjoy it for just like this year. Just
Yeah.
let us have
Do
a
it for
rain.
this
We need it.
Yeah, experience this 1 year what I've had to experience for my whole life, asshole.
Yes.
Yeah, that's oh Jesus. Yeah, that's tough. I
You wonder why people call Phoenix the lovely 365-day year summer, because there's nothing. Literally,
you are not allowed
it
anything.
never changes its season. Like, there might be like the hot summer, and then there might be the cooler summer, but it's literally summer.
It's
all
always
year
still
round.
summer.
Yes.
Meanwhile, where I'm at, I'm always just like when winter comes around, I'm like we like 2 years in a row now, there has been a snowstorm that's been so bad that it's forced me to work from home for at least 1 day out of that period. So, I mean, and again, it's a 1 state difference. I'm like, how is this happening? I don't get it. Like, you can't see it on account of the fact that the light coming through my window just makes it a white block behind me. But it's like, it's on the verge of just like
my
raining.
window is right now.
Yeah, welcome to low fidelity webcams. I don't know what to tell you, man. But no, literally, it's like I can hear the wind going, and it's like on the verge of about to start raining, and it is 73 degrees over here.
Make me check my temperature. It's currently. Open phone, please tell me the temperature outside. It would be helpful.
Yeah, and apparently it's gonna be raining throughout like the whole weekend. So I was like, ha, huzzah, I win.
So that's funny because the highest today was supposed to be 70 degrees. It's currently 64 degrees Celsius because, one, it's after 6 and it's getting into the cooler process. Plus, it's been cloudy and it like rained yesterday, like for half the day into the evening. So it's like I heard a little thunder earlier.
You're like, yes, retribution.
Yes.
Yeah, I have to make it clear. I'm pretty sure most people aren't gonna care about this, but you said 64 degrees Celsius, and I'm like, it is not 147 degrees over there.
I meant Fahrenheit. I'm so used to speaking in Celsius. My apologies. I have someone that's literally on the other side of the world that doesn't know Fahrenheit. So it's
no,
like,
that's not your fault. That's my fault for being ignorant. I knew what you were talking about. I was just being, annoying. So it's actually cooler for you than it is over here. This is. I feel scammed.
Again, I live literally between the mountains and the valley. I could easily look up what it is down in Phoenix.
I mean,
Phoenix is currently 86 degrees Fahrenheit.
That's not
highest
too bad,
was
actually.
92.
Yeah, it's a little tough. We've also had this weird fluctuation between, on Tuesday, it peaked at 93 degrees, and then it jumped down to 85, and then it went back up to 95 over Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I was like, what is going on here? But I gotta hold on. Wait, here's the thing. Watch this. Okay. What is your opinion on peach cobbler? Because that was going to be my answer for dishes that I think are the best when made well.
So the only way I'll eat a peach cobbler is if it's made in a Dutch oven over a campfire, because that's the only way that I pretty much grew up eating it.
Champion! You are my people.
I guess I have to take you with me camping when my family goes, because
I don't want to go camping in Arizona. That sounds like
specific dish that he makes almost every time we go camping is his peach cobbler. He literally will put it in his Dutch oven that he has. He'll throw cake batter stuff, eggs and butter into it to make the crust. How he does this every single time.
He's a magician.
I don't know. He is a magician. I literally, it's crazy, but I grew up eating it just that way, and anytime when we didn't go camping, I didn't have it for the longest time, and then my dad tried to make it in his grill, and it didn't taste exactly how you would make it when it was in the fire. It was literally made off the grill. It was no, I need the fire. I need the campfire to make it.
You're I don't know what the difference is, but you better do it in the fire.
It doesn't taste the same. It needs to be the fire.
The way that our family does it is we'll make the cobbler in the Dutch oven. We'll dig a hole. We'll put coals in the hole and then put it on top of that. I don't know why we do it. I think it's just to keep other people from touching it if they don't need to. But it ultimately still achieves the same goal.
Oven. That's literally what you're doing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because how an oven works is literally it creates heat from the bottom and it creates heat from the top, and it's literally
it just traps it in a little heat box.
Yeah, that's literally what you were doing.
Yeah, so that's how we do it. I don't know if there would be that much of a difference between how we would do it and how you would do it, but I could agree. I'm like you put this on the grill, banished.
No, I banished the no. That's directly. No. I tried making a blueberry cobbler. Or it was a different type of fruit cobbler. I can't remember if it was blueberry or blackberry. I think it was blueberry. And I tried making it in a crock pot. It did not taste the same if my dad were to make it in the Dutch oven. It was man. I wanted to try
So-
something new, and this didn't taste as good as when my dad makes it in the fire.
Yeah,
So, like,
I really think that is a truly actually interesting phenomenon of not being able to make something as good as your parents do it, despite the fact that you think you know what you're doing. It doesn't. I don't understand. Like, a part of me thinks it's the same phenomenon behind when your mom asks you to find something and you can't find it, and then she walks over and she just spots it instantly, and you're like, "But I checked that spot 3 times."
oh my god, I've had that happen so many times where it's like I have something that I put down for 1 second and I walk away to go and do something else, and I come back and I'm looking for this item and it's staring at me in the face, and I'm like looking all over the place for it, looked in this spot, it wasn't there. It was like it magically disappeared from like my sight. Like it just had like this magical camouflage, or a wizard came in and was like, I cast invisibility, and it just disappears. And yeah, like I come back and I stop looking for a second, then I come back and I find it in the exact spot, literally of where I just looked. It's like
It's there,
what
and you're like,
witchery literally just happened. Like I had a
This
wallet
is
that I
stupid.
put down, and I put it down for like one moment, and then I walked away, and then I came back and I literally looked around my whole entire room in the exact spot of where I found it later on in the day. Literally, it was like, where is this thing? I searched for hours on end. Finally stopped looking until the evening, and I turned on a flashlight. It was staring right at me. When I turned on my flashlight, I was like, where?
the flashlight manifested
how
it.
did-
That's what happened.
Yeah, it was like... My aunt's mocking
This is
me.
stupid. Oh, jeez. All right. So what I
Is there
think
any
we've
new
ultimately learned here.
questions?
No, I think you've answered all of them. I think ultimately what we've learned here is that wizards.
Altitude can
And-
do a major difference in baking.
Yes, number one, altitude can make a big difference in your baking.
Do
Number
not
two,
use applesauce in brownies.
yeah, don't do that. That's number two. And number three, wizards and bakers are actually pretty close to the same thing. They mix together things in an alchemical way, and the only thing that makes them different is that the bakers end up with a pot of brownies, and the wizards end up with a potion that makes you invisible. And I think that is something that I believe to be true. And until somebody can provide me further proof, that is what I will continue to believe. Sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds good. All right, cool. On the note of wizards, I do appreciate you for coming on here and talking about your baking shenanigans. I can very clearly tell how much you enjoy doing your baking stuff, as well as just how much like the people around you enjoy it, because you've clearly made a name for yourself amongst your friends and family of like, this is my thing. You will let me do it.
I will literally have friends that come up to me after like they've tried my baking. They're like, do you have any more of those cookies that you made me the other day? I was like, no, I'm sorry, my family ate them all. Can you make some more? Yeah, I can.
So yeah, you've made a name for yourself amongst your friends and family, and I think that's very impressive. And I think all of that ends up forming a lot of the experiences that you have that allows you to talk about baking in a very like open and honest way, and in a very alchemical way that I don't understand, but I may one day hope to understand. And for that, I thank you. Thank you.
I promise your opinion will change entirely once you try my baked goods at one point in the future. It's
You make a
something.
goddamn good point.
I promise you, I made box muffins for a friend who came to visit me for my birthday a few years ago. She literally ate a pan and a half of my brownies. Literally followed the instructions of the box because it was just a quick thing to do, and it didn't really need much time to it. And she literally ate half of a pan and a half of it. I had probably 3 or 4 of them, and I was like, man, I must have did a good job on these,
That was
even though
fast.
they're literally... It was the funniest thing. So
Yeah, I think
I
you know
promise you'll be like, hey Sky, can I get some more of these cookies that you made me? I'm like, Cheryl, send some over.
Yeah,
I
so
have
that's
to wait a week or two. Oh, that's gonna be hard.
it sucks. No, you know what I think that means? I think that makes you a wizard because you're able to take these box mixes and you're like, boom, best thing you ever had. I think you're the magician.
Shh, don't spoil my secrets now.
Look, only like 6 people are going to listen to this, and one of them might be me. So not that many people are going to be super involved with your secrets. I think you should be safe. But on that note, this is weird because this isn't one of those things that is there like anything at all that you want to shout out, whether it be yourself, whether it be your friends, whether it be like a particular content creator you like, just anything at all?
Nothing that comes to mind.
Nothing really. Fair enough.
Except
I realize
for,
I should read.
I had an amazing time with you today, and all my yapping of magical things going all over the place, but we still ended up talking about the one thing that we came to talk about and our funny experiences.
Yeah, the ultimate goal is to hone in on one thing and hope that other things end up getting talked about in the process. Because if I miss the main point, I'm not doing my job properly. So I'm glad to hear that you had a good time. And this is the point. The very beginning of the podcast is where I would normally say something like, when I talked to this person, they were super nervous about coming on this podcast. No, I'm doing it now. This motherfucker was like shivering in their timbers. They were like, what am I going to do here?
I was not shivering. Don't exaggerate, sir. I was not shivering.
Yeah, no, I'm just being dramatic.
I did straight up say, literally before the podcast, was like, I'm nervous because I've never done this before, but I'm ready to like take the leap and step out of my boundaries. Like this whole entire time, like my way of nervousness, I just keep chattering and chattering and chattering and chattering. I need to tell myself to shut up sometimes.
Yeah. I think that's ultimately what it is I think it's that like people who are like nervous to come on a podcast, they're not nervous about what's being talked about. They're not nervous about the questions that's going to be asked of them. I think it's just that people don't understand. One, they probably don't understand how my podcast is structured, but more importantly than that, I think it's just that they don't understand how podcasts are structured in general. So they're like, how should I be saying things? Which makes it difficult. And I understand.
A podcast is literally 2 people talking about a subject. Sometimes it's going to go off the rails, sometimes it's not. Like, that is the point of a conversation. It's just a recorded conversation for other people.
Yeah, exactly. And as long as you don't reveal any incriminating details about yourself, you've got nothing to worry about. I've probably done that a couple of times. I remember on an old episode of a podcast that I did with my buddies, I was like, what's the most illegal thing that I've done concerning Nintendo games? And they were like, you shouldn't say that.
Say that.
Yeah. So as long as you don't do that kind of thing, I think you're mostly safe. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad that you could be here. It was a fun time. And now what this means is that I have a little bit of a backlog, which is nice because I always like to be a week ahead. So thank God that you're like, my schedule is open as shit. And I was like, yes, champion.
Like, if something came up, I would have definitely told you, like, hey, is there any chance we could, like, reschedule this because something came up? But
ultimately, it's like I operate on other people's schedules, so rescheduling's never that big of an issue. It's only if they're like, hey, the only time that I have free is this exact pocket of window where you are not free. I'm like, shit, I don't know what to do for them. So thank goodness that it would not have been an issue if a reschedule was necessary. But yeah, on the note of wizards again, because that's how I'm going to keep rolling this back. If anybody's interested in any of the other things that I do on the internet, you can just like search up DJ Cereal Sauce in miscellaneous formats and you'll find what you're looking for. Again, I'm on Twitch, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Apple Music. I have an Instagram, but my Instagram got hacked, and so I'm trying to rebuild it from the ground up. I have a TikTok, but it's mostly just me talking about getting more people on this podcast. So maybe not the most interesting thing, but I'm trying my best. And on that note, I guess I'm going to have to go and what am I going to do? I'm going to go buy some baked goods from the store, and then I'm going to go buy the things to make those baked goods, and then I'm going to compare the two.
You're going to call me up and be like, hey, Shy, can you, like, teach me how to do this? I'm like, yeah, and then let's go for it.
I was going to be like, it's like, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with this recipe? And you're just like, no.